This is Retire Hour.
Welcome into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape of retirement. And there's so many things out there. We've got a great full show for you this week to talk about. But I want to start off by sharing with you a 15-minute phone call I had with one of you guys that listen to the show. And again, if you have questions, we'd love to chat with you by phone. And we're going to call them Sue and Peter. That's not their real names, but I want to protect their identities because they've got some unique situations going on. They need the whole enchilada. They need the estate plan. They need the tax planning. They need the help with the investments, and they need someone to help them transition from the workforce into retirement. Sue and Peter, they live in Wichita, and they have some farmland. They have hundreds of acres. I'm not going to say the amount, but it's well over a couple hundred acres, and it's in their physical name. Through this conversation with them by phone last week, mentioned the several risks that they had with owning that farm ground, that hundreds of acres in their name, and not having any kind of formal estate plan set up besides the one they did 35 years ago when their kids were born. They've not had any updates or revisions to that estate plan in over 35 years. If something were to happen to them, all those acres, all that wealth that is in that land, it would be tied up in probate because of how the structure for their estate plan is right now. They only have a will. They do not have any kind of trust. There's no legacy planning there. That is a huge risk that we talked about with Sue and Peter. Good news is Sue and Peter, they're going to come in person this week. They're going to drive down. They live a little bit outside of the Wichita area here. And when we meet with them face-to-face, they're going to have the estate planning attorney here. They're going to have the tax advisor. They're going to have the financial advisor. And of course, they're going to have the healthcare or the Medicare professional around the same table. And this is not something uncommon. I see this from a lot of people that are getting ready to retire. And Sue actually works with a coworker that uses our firm and had told Sue about all the great benefits about working around the same table for their benefit. And through this 15-minute phone call, we got to know them a little bit, answer their questions. And that's what I want to tell you guys out there. With the Federal Reserve meeting this week and keeping interest rates kind of where they're at, with the trouble that's going on in the Middle East, with tariffs, with all these things, you have worked, you have sacrificed, maybe you've even gone without to prepare and to plan for your retirement. But just as you're nearing retirement, you could be just like Sue and Peter and be so ill prepared. Some of these things you might be aware of, like an estate plan that's well over 5 years. It's over 35 years, according to Sue. Or just the things that you're not aware of, maybe on the high fees. They've never worked with a financial advisor. They've done very well. They've got a nest egg north of $3 million. And they're concerned about taxes. They're concerned about what income should they take. They know they have enough money for retirement. They just don't want to cost themselves any more in costly mistakes that we see day in, day out here all the time. And if you're like Sue and Peter, if you're worried, if you're nearing retirement and whatever's going on in the world, whether it's, again, the Middle East, tariffs, the economy, our debt, the tax bills, all these things that can have an impact or might be weighing and pushing and pulling on you in preparation or as you're getting near retirement, do what Sue and Peter did. Reach out and get a 15-minute phone call scheduled with us. And you can do that by calling 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters M-A-G. It stands for Market Advisory Group Report. That report stands for our retirement evaluation, planning, other risks, and taxes. And we want to take a look at everything that's going on in your situation. So often, I think the investments, maybe the stocks, the mutual funds, the ETFs, whatever you're invested in, your 401k, I think that gets a lot of the attention, and rightfully so. I mean, money grabs our attention just as human beings. That's what it does. But if you're not taking a look at the estate plan, if you're not taking a look at how your healthcare options or choices could cost you more or maybe cost you in the future, and then of course, if you're not understanding the fees that can be charged in the investment world, you have your work cut out for you. But I want to tell you is you don't have to do it alone. We're here. And again, if you want to schedule that 15-minute phone call just to have a chat with us by phone like Sue and Peter did, you can do that at 833-MAG-REPORT. Once more, it's 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group report, or you can hop on over to our website at marketadvisorygroup.com or retirehour.com. Well, stay tuned. We're going to go up to Kansas City and talk with Jonathan McCoy about long-term care risks. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it. We'll be back with more Retire Hour right after this. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape of retirement. And guys, it's changing a lot. I just did a class this past week on several retirement topics here in the Wichita area. And I mentioned, just by happenstance, I mentioned one of the conversations me and Joshua, one of our CPAs and one of our lead tax advisors here, Joshua and I had talked about this executive order that Trump had signed, that the IRS is no longer going to be taking your paper vouchers. Excuse me. As of the end of the second quarter, they want the government to issue no paper checks, and they don't want the government to receive paper checks. So that's how this landscape of retirement is ever changing. If you're not working with a team, these issues, you'll find out them after the fact. And that's oftentimes when we find people figure it out. And unfortunately, it's normally because they see the mistake in a dollar sign, whether it's a high tax bill, an expensive probate bill, maybe an expensive long-term care bill. And so speaking of long-term care, we're going to go up to Kansas City and talk with our lead advisor up there, Jonathan McCoy. And you're coming from, looks like our 95th and Null office there. All right. And this is a couple, Stu and Tess, that actually came to one of your classes, but they had questions about long-term care. Tell us what's going on in Stu and Tess's situation.
So we've actually been working with Stu and Tess for a couple of years now. Stu had gotten into his final year of work last year, retired later on in the year, and now we're working through his first year where he's got some final distributions, some stock payouts, some other deferred compensation and things that he's receiving. So there's been a lot to tackle on the tax management front in terms of this last big transition year from a lot of that compensation that he had earned and worked to grow while he was still working. And one of the early conversations that we had early on this year, just a couple of months after he retired, was this old long-term care policy that he had bought from a previous financial advisor, just kind of wondering what was going on with it. What should he do with it? He had paid in what he thought were the final premiums into this plan and stopped paying premiums about 5, maybe 6 years ago. So we were able to bring in our long-term care expert, Kim, here in the office, have her review that policy and at least get him a better understanding of what benefits that was going to provide him. Well, the long story short is after reviewing the policy, it looked like the underlying sort of cash value portion of that policy had been underperforming because it was actually based on the performance of variable investments like mutual funds in the stock market. And when we had the company rerun the illustration based on the updated cash value, the policy was only going to be around for another 6 or 7 years. So then it opened up a sort of a Pandora's box of, well, now what do we do? We thought we had this long-term care coverage, thing covered, and now we've got to look at maybe executing, putting into place another plan or using some of the retirement assets to help either pump some cash into this existing policy or just letting it expire. And he had all these questions around, should I just cash out what's left and put that money somewhere else? So, this was a specific circumstance where it wasn't just a matter of opening up the conversation of, do you need some sort of coverage or protection against long-term care? He just wanted to know what he had, and what he had ultimately was maybe not what he thought he had, unfortunately.
You and I do this every day for a living. We've done it for years and years now. I've done it for 20 years. I think you're approaching on 10 years. Yeah. We do this every day. Like I said, sometimes these products, sometimes these tools with the insurance companies are so convoluted, so murky, so the devil's in the details, so to speak. It can be hard for the average consumer to understand, like you said, what they have. And I'm glad that Stu and Tess had a reliable source they could go to and ask these questions. But when you're telling me things like, well, should we just cash it out? Well, that's probably a tax consequence, or could be. Don't you want to get tax advice before you do that? Is there another way to protect their assets without this long-term care policy? If you were just the lonely financial advisor, and I giggle because I know you've got a whole team up there and you're not by yourself, but if you were just a standalone financial advisor by yourself, how could you even really help Stu and Tess in this situation?
I think it would have been pretty close to impossible. Or what we hear from a lot of folks is, they're searching around, shopping around, maybe meeting us for the first time, and their experience in this process of trying to find a financial professional, an advisor, or even a team of professionals like we offer here at Market Advisor Group, they they oftentimes get the response of, oh, in this circumstance, we've heard a lot of times with other insurance products and insurance agents, it's, you should go back to the agent that sold you this policy, or maybe you should call the company and ask some of these questions. Well, a lot of the folks that we talk to, most of them, they don't know what questions to be asking. And the last time that he had a conversation with the agent that sold him the policy, the agent simply told him, oh yeah, the policy's paid up, effectively gave him the "you're good to go" answer. And only 4 years down the line, he's finding out that maybe he's not good to go. So sometimes it's a matter of when you understand that you're working with professionals that are specific to these different areas, like long-term care planning, financial planning, and financial advising is a lot of what we focus on in the investment management and the income planning world. But so many of these things are so closely tied together. And ultimately, all Stu and Tess wanted to know was if one or both of them had a long-term care event, how's that going to impact their finances? Do they have enough in terms of income streams available to help cover that additional cost? And once they started seeing that this crack had sort of opened up, that this policy they thought they was going to cover them was not necessarily going to be there, we were able to start searching for other options, other opportunities, and what led to being able to leverage some of his retirement portfolio to cover some of that gap of risk. And that it's the short answer to your question is that it's very difficult when you don't have professionals that are specifically trained in these different areas. One financial advisor cannot do it all in terms of tax advice, estate planning, long-term care planning, investment management. And the whole idea behind this teamwork aspect is that we can pull these different professionals in the conference room when I don't know the answer, right? It's us as the financial advisors, we've got to know our weaknesses as well.
Or at least our shortcomings, and then help our clients meet them. And in fact, yesterday I was teaching a class in Matt Ross Community Center in Overland Park, and it was on Social Security. And I asked the audience, I said, what do we know? What do we typically do when we do not know something? And someone says, well, we Google it, right? And I said, that's right. We search the internet when we have questions or we're trying to learn more on a topic. But there's one flaw that the internet still has, and I know they're working with AI to try and get that worked out. But Jonathan, have you ever searched on the internet for what do I not know that I need to know?
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
The internet does not know what's in or outside of your head. And your background, your knowledge, the research that you've already done. And that's ultimately and what I mean by understanding our weaknesses as professionals. It's not that we're not knowledgeable in these different areas, but much like a football team or a basketball team, everyone has their own strengths. You don't typically have an offensive lineman trying to play quarterback in the middle of the game. That's a recipe for disaster. And that's oftentimes what we find is the situation with a lot of folks that have been working with financial advisors even for years, is they just cannot and are not equipped to do it all.
Well, you had me until the sports analogy, because I'll watch a couple of sporting events a year. I'm not a big sports guy, but go sports ball, right? So
right. I'm glad you're not the listeners we're talking to. Hopefully we've got a few sports fans out there anyway.
Well, thanks, Jonathan. I'll let you get back to your meetings there at 95th and all. I know you got a busy day. So, but if you're out there listening or you're watching this and you're thinking, yeah, I don't have a crew of people. I don't have a group that I can go ask these questions to. In fact, when I asked my financial advisor, or when I called my 401k company, or when I was at the bank the other day, and I'm asking these questions on, well, what's this going to do to my taxes? They don't give me an answer, Matt. And if you've been in that situation and you're frustrated and you're like, I know there's more here, and I don't know the questions I need to be asking, reach out and schedule a 15-minute chat with us by phone. You can do that by calling 833-MAG-REPORT. That number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. And that report stands for our retirement evaluation, planning, other risks, and taxes. We take a comprehensive look at your situation, not just the investment side, the whole retirement picture. And believe me, there's a lot more to your retirement than just the investments. And if you don't have that complete team helping you navigate all those changes, and as we're going to talk about here later with Joshua Sikora, our lead tax advisor, this tax bill is getting a little more the details are gelling. If you don't have someone that can help you maximize this tax bill for your situation, again, reach out and give us a call at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again, 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. or you can hop on over to the website at retirehour.com or, of course, marketadvisorygroup.com. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back with Larry Clefcorn talking about a client that's over 90 years old. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more right after this. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape of retirement. And you know, we talk about in one of our books, there's 3 phases to retirement. There's typically like the first 8 to 10 years. Those are the go-go years. Those are when you're going to see the grandkids. You're going and doing those things you've always wanted to do and you've saved and planned for in retirement. The second 8 to 10 years, that's kind of like the slow-go years. That's when someone invites you out somewhere, you go, I don't know, is there going to be a crowd? I don't like people. I don't want to go. And that's that second phase. And then the third phase to kind of retirement, that's the no-go years. And you've got a story about kind of someone in those no-go years, someone that's 94 years old, but their health has been deteriorating. Tell us what's going on in this story here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This was a very healthy person, a very sharp person, and about 4 years ago started slipping into dementia.
It's about 90 years old when they turn 90. They just weren't as sharp as they used to be and just has progressively gone downhill.
And you could see it, and it was actually diagnosed. So now it's the story's unfortunate, and it starts off pretty good, and that is the daughter, which was an only child, and would be the only beneficiary. She moved in with her mother to take care of her.
And that's not uncommon. We will hear that quite regularly, really.
In this case, though, she was there 24 hours.
Wow.
That's a little unusual.
That is.
So while she was with and staying with her, and I knew them, pretty well. So one morning, grandmother gets up and finds daughter had passed away.
Wow. The daughter that was taking care of grandma
Yes.
passed away before her mother did.
That's right.
Wow.
And there goes the plan as far as someone taking care of grandma.
Yeah.
The next successor trustee was a grandchild, and it was the only granddaughter. And so it next falls on her, and so she's already, making plans to be in a facility for nursing home, and wow, that's going to have an effect. They've got a few years worth of assets, okay,
They can pay for her care
because of the planning that we've done. So it's nothing that's going to make her destitute right away, and but the granddaughter is carrying. She works 2 jobs already.
Oh, wow.
So she's not going to be able to move in with her and take care of that. This is her only option now. Yeah. The only other asset that they have is a duplex. They live on one side of it and rent out the other side. But this is a team approach. So it was our estate planning team that has built a trust for them. In fact, a couple of trusts.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this has been revised a couple of times, if I remember right.
Because at one point it was irrevocable because of some family concerns, and then it decided that was all solved, and they got rid of the irrevocable, which can only be done if it has the proper language and the owner's a trustee and so forth. So that was possible, and so they helped them in that way to get everything the way they wanted to have it right now. Now, One of the situations that is going to be crucial here is how long will this dementia take to break her down physically? That sounds crude,
Well,
but I watched it with my own mother.
sure. I mean, I've known people that can live a very long time. The mind might not be healthy, but the body may be still healthy enough to live,
Right.
and that can be a very big expense on someone's nest egg over time.
And I've noticed within the last 4 months, she has physically deteriorated a great deal. But that doesn't mean
No,
that's going to continue. She could plateau for a while.
sure.
And so this is going to be hard on what's left of the family. I say that because it's not like she had several kids and they can all share in, caring for her and making decisions.
Pretty much her long-term care plan was her daughter, and her daughter passed away on her.
Yes.
Her daughter quit.
Yeah.
Not by probably choice, but I
Right.
mean, but that can happen. And I know, like you said, I'm familiar with this couple. They are
Yes.
long-term clients of you and Danny's for a long time. But originally there was an estate plan in place here to where if mom and dad passed away, they didn't want their son-in-law to get anything because they
Right.
were worried about things that happened there. Well, in this instance, if the daughter passed away, is the daughter's husband gonna receive the inheritance, or is the grandkids gonna receive the inheritance?
It's going mostly to the grandkids. They do have something for the husband because he went through some difficult times where he needed some help,
And he got
he
that help.
got that help.
Good.
And thank goodness for that.
Yeah, and family dynamics can be always tricky. And specifically when you're talking about your parents, maybe nest egg, or maybe the family nest egg. And then if you don't have that plan, or if your plan is for your kids to move in with you, you can't count on that because you just heard in this situation, she passed away. You never know when your last day is going to be. And if you're worried that you don't have a plan, or that you're worried about the risks that you haven't addressed in your retirement overall, they've not been addressed, reach out and schedule a 15-minute conversation with us by phone. And you can do that at calling 833-MAG Report. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG. That stands for Market Advisory Group. And then, of course, report. That stands for our retirement evaluation, planning, other risks, and taxes. And we want to make a comprehensive conversation with you to figure out what gaps you may have in your plan. You never want to have those gaps pop up later and then realize, oh man, we don't have this covered, because normally those mistakes cost people thousands and thousands of dollars. Well, you won't want to miss here coming up after the break here at the bottom of the hour. We've got Mark Benefield with Market Medicare Advisors already talking about Medicare open enrollment this year. That's kind of crazy, right? Can't believe that's back here again. Alex Robinson, he'll have some stories to share too. You won't want to miss it. Back with Retire Hour after this. Well, welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on all things retirement, not just the economic trends, not just the Social Security type tips. It's everything. And we've got Mark Benefield here. I've heard of Christmas in July, but we're in July and we're talking about Medicare's annual enrollment period, AEP. It's a little early.
Well, it's early for some people.
You guys are
but if
cranking
it's
up.
what you do for a living, it's not early at all.
Okay, fair enough. Get my yogurt off the table here, eat my breakfast. But you have this update for us with, again, Medicare annual enrollment, you're according to you, is quickly approaching. And I guess, I
Well, we
laugh.
actually already have clients that are calling. A lot of our clients, there's a lot that's going on. Healthcare and Medicare specifically for somebody who's 65, 70 years old is a major undertaking. Keeping on top of it, making sure that they have the right plan selected, and with all of the information / misinformation that's in the public realm right now, as far as cuts and non-cuts and rumors, and I mean, we're getting more and more phone calls about that all the time, asking what's going to happen, what's going on, And there's been a lot of movement with different types of carriers, people coming into the market, out of the market, changes. So if nothing else, we're very busy getting up to speed on what's going on and what's taking place and keeping on top of what's going on in the Medicare space.
Well, and I was meeting with someone 2 weeks ago, and they told me that they're on Medicare, and they have this prescription that if they go over a certain dollar amount, I think they're getting some manufacturer assistance from their drug maker. But if they go over a certain amount of their income, because this is what was important to her, she goes, well, I've been told I have to stay under this income to get this medication discount. And I asked her, I said, I thought it was $2,000 was the maximum out of pocket. I thought that was the new rule now. And she goes, yeah, I did too. So we had to go drag another Medicare person in. It wasn't you, but you talk to that. I mean, now I'm seeing areas where it might not be $2,000 as the maximum out of pocket.
As part of the
Inflation
changes
Reduction.
that happened, Inflation Reduction Act from a couple of years ago. One of the changes they put in place was that there was a cap on prescription drugs that nobody in Medicare would pay over $2,000 as long as those drugs were on the formulary. So there are many drugs that are not covered by not covered by any insurance company. There's some that are unique, that are experimental. There's all kinds of things that are out there that aren't covered. So if your drug is on a formulary, it's covered up to a cap of $2,000. But if it's not, there's no cap. And there's so much misinformation. For instance, one of the things we hear all the time is, well, I thought insulin was capped. No, companies are required to cap 3 insulins, but there's many, many different types of insulin. So it's kind of a roll of the dice on whether your insulin would be capped or not. And if it's not $35. It could be $300.
Now, we were just talking earlier, there is some changes that, people are calling and asking about and starting to get concerned with. It seems like as the government changes and new laws come out, very, very seldom does someone stay on the same plan or everything stay the same because their health changes, the coverage changes, companies maybe drop out of market, consolidate products. There's been a lot of changes just in the past 2 or 3 years, and there's probably more to come.
There's been several changes in the last 2 or 3 months. And, we just got communication from one of our major carriers that there are certain plans that they were going to drop. Well, we have clients that are on those plans. And so, we want to do pre-work. We want to make sure when October comes around, for annual enrollment, when it comes around, that we're positioned and ready and understand all the intricacies of the different plans, what's in those plans, how they're going to affect our current clients. And our long-term clients recognize and do that. That's why they continue to come back to us, because they know that, at the end of the day, our responsibility is to get them the best possible health care they can at the price that they can afford, at the best possible price as well. And so there's definitely big movements that have happened. And we're seeing lots of really big movements right now. I mean, let's face it. There was a lot of pressure on companies to keep their premiums low, even though inflation was going crazy. And we've seen 10, 12, even 15% increases on some of the supplement sides of our business because there was a lot of pressure being exerted on them to keep them low because it sounds good, right? But the reality is they got to make it up over time, and now they're trying to make it up. And of course, that can't be kicked down the road. So now everybody looks at the new administration like it was their fault. This stuff was put into motion years ago.
Yeah, unfortunately, the government doesn't move too quickly. Right. And here we are, 6-7 months into Trump's first term. There's not a lot of things that he's doing to Medicare right now that's having an impact, but there's things they're talking about. And what's really complicated is knowing all these intricacies. Well, it's a $2,000 maximum out-of-pocket cost. If the drug's covered, right. Well, it's going to be an increase in your premiums, 10 to 15%. Ouch, that stings.
And what are all my alternatives if I can't afford that? What can I do? What are the rules around changing plans?
So all this seems so complicated, but I can tell you what's not complicated. Coming in and talking to you guys and your team and figuring out how this impacts the people for their health care, whether this year or next year. That's not complicated, right?
Absolutely. And we really encourage, all of our clients and people who might be our clients, in the future that might be listening to call us. Let's get on the schedule. Let's have a phone conversation, a video conversation, in-person conversation, and review their medications, their plans when it comes for annual enrollment. But we do have a limited bandwidth. We are hiring some new advisors. We've hired a couple of new ones just in the last few months, but they're going to be full soon. So if you're listening to this, it's not too early opportunity to get on the schedule for October 15th plus, get yourself taken care of so you have peace of mind so you can sleep at night and not have to worry about it for the next couple months knowing you're going to be well taken care of.
Yeah, that's so true. Just had one of my great clients over the weekend that he emailed me and says, it's getting to be that time. I probably need to reach out to you guys and get on your calendar, put him in touch with Sarah. Now he's on Trey's calendar. And you're right. The calendar does fill up there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're always going to find a way to work with everybody and get them in there. But, if you have some requirements, if you're going to be taking trips towards the end of the year, you got grandkids you're going to go see, whatever that might be, then let's get you on the schedule now.
And I think even with the Affordable Care Act, ACA, I think the administration said they're shortening that window for enrollment too.
They are shortening that window, and they're tightening up some of those regulations there as well, and how that they're affecting people and who's eligible and income guidelines and those kinds of things. And so, one thing about healthcare, just like everything else in life, everything's all about change, and it continues to change. And so, there's going to be more change between now and October, and it'll be coming fast and furious.
And if you guys are listening or watching this, however you're getting this program, if you're thinking, I just don't know that much about Medicare, take it from me. I think there's two kinds of people in this world. There's people that are prepared. They get their information in advance. They want to know how this is going to impact them. They want to see what their prescriptions are going to cost, how that changes year over year, what their doctor's visits are going to cost, what their providers, how they're getting covered. And then the other person is the person that shows up the day before they turn 65 and says, hey, I kind of need to do this. Yeah. So there's kind of two people when it comes to Medicare. Yeah. Which one are you? Are you the one that wants to be prepared and wants to get that information before you turn 65, before you're going to need that Medicare coverage? If that's the case, reach out and schedule a 15-minute chat with us, 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. That's our process that we take you through to figure out where your risks are and what opportunities you have there as well. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back with Alex Robinson with Eidelman Law Firm, talking about someone that called him literally from the hospital, literally from ICU, trying to get this person's estate plan done. I guess better late than never. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it. We'll be right back with more right after this. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on all things retirement. I've been doing this for 20 years. I graduated from Goddard High School in the year 2001. And some of you guys out there that are listening to the program, maybe some of you guys that are my clients and you meet with me, it may shock you that occasionally I'd wait till Sunday night, the day before, or the night before, you've had the weekend, you've got to have fun. The night before you had to be back at school, all of a sudden I had homework. Can you believe that, Alex?
No, not at all.
And my mom and dad eventually beat into me and worked with me that you really don't need to wait to the last minute. And this is an estate planning story where someone was kind of waiting Sunday night before they were not get ready to go back to school, but when they were in the hospital with some pretty big health issues, they searched for us on the internet, and that's how they found us.
Yeah, I just got a call Monday morning, so 2 days ago, from his son, who was like, hey, my dad's in the ICU. We need to get some estate planning done. Is there any way you can come out to the hospital and help out with that?
Wow.
So, luckily for them, I had time in my calendar where I could go down to the hospital and talk to him. He's in the ICU, hooked up to all these machines and, nurses in and out, and able to talk to him. He had capacity, so we were able to get things done. And
capacity is not... What is capacity?
So that just means he had the ability to talk to me and knew what was going on and tell me what he wanted to do, which is one of the key requirements for estate planning.
Because you can't be like the segment we were talking with Larry earlier, someone that has dementia. They're not of sound body and mind to sign their rights away. They're not really in a position. So sometimes when people put this off, it can make it more complicated. This person had the legal term capacity. They knew what they were signing, and so you got to meet with them in the hospital.
Yeah,
that's service.
Yeah, I mean, we try. We understand that this is a hugely important thing to get done, that it impacts your life and it impacts the lives of all the people you love and care about. So we're gonna take care of people wherever we need to take care of them. And
you and I were talking 4 or 5 weeks ago before I did my most recent estate planning class. The average probate expense is anywhere from 3 to 6%, right?
Yeah.
So if you have $1 million asset that needs to be probated, that's $30,000 to $60,000 in an expense. And I think sometimes people just stick their head in the sand. I don't, maybe living under a rock. I don't know. They don't really think it's going to happen to them or their loved ones, and then it does, and it could have been avoided. I don't think I've ever seen Eidelman Law Firm charge $30,000 to $60,000 for an estate plan.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't happen. But you're right. People don't wake up and say like, "Oh, today's the day I'm going to die," or "Today's the day I'm going to, lose my ability to make decisions for myself." We think life is going to continue as it has been. And so estate planning is one of those things that you go to a seminar and you're like, "Oh, I really need to get this done." So your urgency's way up here. And then the next day we have a big storm, or your kid gives birth, or, whatever, life happens. And so then your urgency drops way back down, and it can catch you by surprise. You look up and it's been 3 or 4 years. And when you actually need to have estate planning in place, a lot of times you don't actually have that ability to do it because you don't have the ability to make decisions for yourself, or you're in the hospital and you're unconscious or whatever it may be. And that makes it so difficult because when you actually need it is the time you can't get it.
Last question here for you. Did you get them all taken care of? Do they have a very complicated situation?
I mean, it was pretty complicated, but I made time and we went yesterday to the hospital and got everything signed.
Called you on Monday, had a plan in place by Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, it's not typical. We're typically booked out pretty far in terms of drafting, but in situations where it's critical, I moved things around on my calendar and made sure we got it done.
Well, I appreciate you doing that and taking care of those people there. And it's not always a situation where if they're in by 9, they can be out by 5.
Almost never. But again, this is a vital thing. I've had people who come in and they're like, "Hey, I just found out I have stage 4 cancer. I have 2 weeks to live." And again, we're going to move things around to take care of them. But ideally, you don't want to be waiting because it's just luck of the draw whether you can get that done in your time of need. You really want to do it beforehand.
I think you and I are old enough to remember 1 hour photo. I think there's some people on our team here around the office that don't know what 1 hour photo is. Maybe we should come up with 1 hour estate plan.
Please don't.
Please don't.
It puts a lot of stress on them and on us to make sure we have everything done the right way.
Are you sure? I know just around the corner where I live, there's a coffee kiosk that went out. You and Gerald could just sit in there and
we'll just sit there, yeah.
just
do estate plans, $5.
I'm kind of joking here because I'm trying to make light of a serious matter, but it's the truth. If you don't have a plan in place, don't wait till the last minute, because oftentimes I've been a part of a couple of those stories where people have waited the last minute, and it doesn't always work out to the best scenario possible. And if you don't have a plan in place, or worse yet, if your plan's older than 4 or 5 years, you probably need to have it reviewed. And you can do that by setting up a 15-minute phone call with us at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can hop on over and book that 15-minute phone call on our website at marketadvisorygroup.com or retirehour.com. Well, stay tuned. We'll be back with Joshua Sikora. He's going to tell us how fast that tax bill going through Congress will pass. Just kidding. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back into Retire Hour. I don't know if this is always my favorite segment because you're on here, or because it just means the end of the show's happening.
Well, shucks.
We've got a couple things to talk about. We got that new tax bill going through Congress, but we get common questions on this all the time, like, well, now that I'm married, or now that I'm retired, I should take a large withdrawal out of my retirement account to pay off the mortgage, right? Not normally.
No, so that's where we go back to one of these old, economics concepts of opportunity cost, and that sounds mysterious, right? But it's basically coming down to, you have $1.
I got a dollar. Hey. No.
So you've got $1. What do you want to do with it? And then if you do that, what are you giving up? So you've got $1. You've got many dollars in your retirement accounts. Either you could pay off your mortgage, but if you do that, what are you giving up? And so a lot of times for people, that's either future cash flow or growth in the meantime. And so what's the value of that compared to paying off the mortgage?
I think I've heard Danny, my father, an advisor here, talk about this in a metaphor of, do you want to have the goose that lays the golden egg for you every year, or do you want to have a nice goose dinner?
Yep.
And that's kind of in that metaphor of, you don't have the portfolio generating the income anymore. Worse yet, normally people take these large withdrawals out of their retirement accounts and they owe a third of it gone in taxes because of these large withdrawals pushing them higher up the tax brackets.
That's right. And especially if you've had your mortgage loan for a while, the interest has really kind of been taken out already. And so you're just paying back the principal.
I'd go put you in government treasury and get you 4%. If your mortgage is costing you less than 3%, why would you do that to yourself?
I don't know. Because the government needs some money, right?
Well, like you said, those opportunity costs, I've seen you have this conversation with many people in the conference room time and time again. Sometimes it'll work out to be not as bad as the others, but someone just the other day, they wanted to take out $150,000 all at once, and I think after the taxes were done, out of their IRA, they were wound up with like $90,000.
Yeah, and then that's not as effective as they think it's going to be to pay down that loan, and it's not like they really gain anything. They still got the property taxes, the homeowner's insurance. It's oftentimes not a great solution.
I had someone the other day, he said, we never really own our home. And I said, what do you mean by that? He says, well, I've had it paid off, but I keep paying property taxes to the county every year. So that's true.
That is true.
And a lot of that is built into your monthly payment. So if your payment's $1,600 a month, interest and principal might be $800 to $1,000, and then the other might be the property taxes and the insurance. So you're not gonna get away from that obligation.
Nope.
And then depending on what happens with the tax code, maybe you can deduct that interest, maybe you can't. We don't know what's going on with the tax code. There's my segue.
That's right. Speaking about obligations. So another common question we've been asked, especially lately, is what's going on with the tax code? We've been talking for years that it's going to expire at the end of this year, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. If that expires, then a whole bunch of bad stuff happens for individuals. But let's be honest, they're not going to let it just expire. They're going to pass something to replace it. If not, it's going to be awful for a number of reasons. But then the question comes down to, what are they going to replace it with? The House has their OB3, one big, beautiful bill. The Senate has their version. They're not the same.
No, they're not.
And so that means there's going to be some horse trading going back and forth.
And the margins are pretty narrow in both houses, that they can't afford to lose a lot of votes.
That's right. And so that makes that horse trading all the more critical to get the key number of votes to pass something. The devil's going to be in the details. What exactly is going to be coming out in this finalized tax bill? It's anybody's guess at this point. There's some big things they're still talking about. This whole no tax on tips is still in limbo. The no tax on Social Security is even a completely different bill.
Yeah, that's not even being addressed in this, and I don't even think it'll get through. But these things that are going to be happening here, we were talking about this with Mark Benefiel earlier on the Medicare. The government changes every couple of years sometimes. Trump's only going to be in office for 3 more years. I think he wants to be a little more than that, but that's not going to probably happen. But Congress can change here at the midterms.
Yeah.
So if they're going to make these tax cuts, quote unquote, they keep saying permanent. Well, it's only permanent until the next government comes in and changes it right behind them.
Right. And so that's why when we talk about tax planning with people, we talk about it not being a set it and forget it plan. It's a write this year in stone, next year in pencil.
Yep.
And then talk about the year after that. And then we just keep repeating the cycle year after year, because we know things are not going to be the same next year or the year after as they are today.
And I think they're going to get this passed. I think they're going to get some kind of tax reform passed. And I would encourage everyone out there just listening, you need to take a look at these retirement accounts that haven't had the taxes paid on them. And if you can have some opportunities over the next 3 or 4 years to take some money out of those accounts that have never had the taxes paid on them, the IRAs, the 401ks, not only does it reduce your potential future tax liability, but it's probably going to reduce your future surviving spouse's tax liability. And if not there, then your kids' tax liability, or whoever you leave your retirement accounts to when you and your spouse pass away.
That's right. It's better to take control of your options on your terms than wait for Uncle Sam to dictate to you what you have to do.
And because we've been doing tax planning for the last 8 years with the Tax Cuts and Job Act, you've been taking a look and helping people use those unused dollars in their lower tax brackets, the 10 and 12%. That's where those Roth conversions, those tax planning conversations typically make the most sense.
Well, that's where they're most effective. We can do them at higher brackets, and depending on the people in their situation, that may make sense. But if you don't talk to somebody who can help you understand your situation, how can you seize that opportunity?
And I was talking at the beginning of the show, the couple I met with by phone, I'm going to meet with them in person here, Sue and Peter. They have almost $4 million in their retirement accounts, and they're still relatively young in retirement. They are absolutely someone that needs tax planning because they have a tax bomb in their retirement account.
Yeah. Let's hope it doesn't blow up on them.
And if you guys are thinking out there, I don't get tax planning, or I want to make sure I'm maximizing these tax cuts that Congress is talking about for my situation. If you don't know if you're maximizing it there, reach out and schedule a 15-minute phone call with us at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can hop on over to our website at retirehour.com or marketadvisorygroup.com. That's all the time we have this week. We'll catch you next week.
Investment advisory services are duly offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor, and Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The investment advisor representatives of Market are also affiliated with and registered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, and may provide services on behalf of both firms to client or prospective clients where properly licensed or exempt. This show is presented by Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor that only conducts business in jurisdictions where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean that the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. The firm is not engaged in the practice of law or accounting. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the show's publication and are subject to change. The information presented is not an offer to buy or sell or a solicitation of any offer to buy or sell any of the securities discussed. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Any legal or tax information provided in this show is general in nature. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Annuity and life insurance guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. If you withdraw money from or surrender your contract within a certain time after investing, the insurance company may assess a surrender charge. Withdrawals may be subject to tax penalties and income taxes. Persons selling annuities and other insurance products receive compensation for these transactions. These commissions are separate and distinct from fees charged for advisory services. Insurance products also contain additional fees and expenses. Social Security rules and regulations are subject to change at any time. Always consult with your local Social Security office before acting upon any information provided herein. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. This is not endorsed by the U.S. government or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-Medicare to get information on all your options. All client or prospective client names have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. All rights reserved.